It's the second day of Festival of Media Global in Rome. I'm delighted to be here with Asif Kapadia, just come off stage talking about A Tale of Thomas Burberry, which is a Christmas advert that you put together, but it's kind of a bit like a trailer, really, isn't it, for a non-existent film?
Absolutely. The idea was to make a kind of hybrid. It was a commercial, but it was actually a trailer for a film which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But to make it feel like it had a production values of a big budget period film. Everything in there, all the clothes are all Burberry, a lot of props are Burberry, but the idea was it should feel like a film, movie actors, movie crew.
Great cast.
Yeah, amazing. Donald Gleeson,
Yeah,
Dominic West, Lily James. You know, we had Sienna Miller.
Yeah.
They were all brilliant as well. They were really, really great. We had Dion Beebe, who's just come off shooting Beauty and the Beast and who won an Oscar for Memoirs of a Geisha. It's an incredible, incredible team. And really good fun, actually. Really, really interesting working with Burberry because they contacted us directly.
Yeah.
You know, they contacted a screenwriter, Matt Sharman, who had written Bridge of Spies for Spielberg. Matt contacted me. The three of us, it's essentially Christopher Bailey and Greg Stogden from Burberry, and the writer and the director sitting down in a room, just us, working out what do we want to do, what do we want to say, how do we do it, and then there was a lot of trust and they let us go off and do it.
And you basically filmed a lot more than you actually used, didn't you, as well? You treated it as though you
All
were
commercials
going for
do, surely.
Yes,
they don't just
sort of.
shoot 30 seconds, do they? I think actually, I would say, because we ended up writing a longer script.
Yes.
We had a 7-page script with scenes and with dialogue and characters and character journeys, and then knowing that as we were shooting from that scene, maybe 2 shots will make the cut, but you're not sure which 2 shots, as opposed to shooting, kind of having a very tight storyboard and you shoot the frames. We were shooting scenes. That was a big difference, which was a more filmy way of doing it.
The thing I found interesting, because for me, I get really irritated by trailers that kind of spoil the whole movie for you, but basically that was the whole purpose of this, that you wanted to tell the whole story in a trailer.
Yeah.
For you
I don't watch trailers normally. It's true, for that reason.
To avoid it?
Yeah, for movies, I don't want to know who's going to, I don't want to know what's going to happen.
You literally see the final scene, particularly horror movies.
But it's really interesting. Young people are obsessed with them. I think that was the thing. They really love watching them, and you see them watching them on their phones, and they talk about them, and it makes them excited. And so the idea was to also appeal to a kind of particular demographic who might know Donald Gleeson, like his work because he's come off Star Wars and The Revenant, and coming off, Ex Machina. He's never done a commercial. So when they see it, they think this must be a movie because he doesn't do commercials, which I liked. Slightly playing on that idea of people that you would not necessarily expect to be in a commercial. They're going to be in a movie, aren't they? And that was the idea.
He's also a very interesting looking chap in that he's very handsome, but not in your conventional way. And so he suits the kind of fashion man look.
And also, slightly moody, and there's something going on. There's like a broodiness about him. He's quite deep.
What was he like to work with?
He was amazing. I mean, he's worked with some top directors, so he was tough actually, which I like. If he's not comfortable with something, he's not going to do it. He's not going to say it. And if he comes up with a better idea, then his line sometimes is better than the one that was scripted. So he was treating it like a movie, and he had actors have their own things, and they need a bit of confidence. They need to trust you as a director. They need to trust the team, and during the process, I felt like we earned a lot of trust for one another, and he was really happy with the film, having never dipped his toe into this universe previously. He was quite nervous about it, but I think he was really happy with the finished product.
And it totally looks amazing. I think everyone was blown away. My colleague I was sitting next to during your presentation said, "Oh, I want to see that film." Obviously didn't realise what was going on quite, but so you've got some people in the audience already if it ever does come out.
One day, you never know. I mean, the thing was there were so many storylines that we could have developed, and so many ideas that didn't end up being shot. Because I really love the idea of Burberry when it kind of post-war, when it goes into the 60s. The whole swinging 60s. You got David Bailey, you got kind of Twiggy, you've got Rolling Stones, all of these movie stars, Meryl Streep, there's all these amazing people that were wearing the trench coats. So the way it then became a fashion brand all happened a bit later. And I was like, how can we not manage to squeeze that in? But we just couldn't squeeze it in. So I feel like that's another film that one day I'd love to do.
Maybe that's another Christmas. Gabardine, though, as well. There's created by them, so the Gab jackets, is that as well?
Did you know that? I mean,
I did not know
that.
No,
the trench coat, just the idea that you have this term trench coat, but you had no idea it was invented because it was the way to dress soldiers in the trenches. Simple as
that
that.
scene as well, where the soldier walks away and they look at each other.
So that's the other thing,
Very
I've mentioned the stars, but actually that kid is that 16-year-old kid who came in, who, the average age of soldiers going off to fight in war were very, very young. He's that age. He was dressed by Burberry, in Burberry clothes, not literally by Burberry probably, but, he was dressed in a trench in order to protect him from the elements. And I thought that was interesting because I was a bit worried that is it going to be toned down and made a bit, commercials-y and make it very nice, but actually Bailey was very, very much like, Christopher Bailey was very much like, you do what you want to do. So we wanted it to feel a bit edgy and, it's a bit emotional that moment. This kid who gets dressed and goes off to war and probably never coming back. So
typical Christmas advert moment
exactly,
as well. Everyone loves a little tearjerker.
They do, but you're kind of nervous when you have the conversations whether or not people are going to go for that. But they did.
No, it looks absolutely great, and obviously based on history. But you kind of work with fact a lot these days. You do a lot of documentaries, and this, I guess, is based on fact. Although it's not quite your traditional documentary, but you also have a history of working with fiction side, and how do you treat those things differently? And in this climate where fake news is so big, what do you think is the importance of keeping the fact true?
It's a good question. In this case, the idea, first and foremost, I feel like I'm a director, so my job is to, whatever the job is, to come in and to figure out, okay, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to do? What's the best way to do that? And it may be certain stories like Amy or Ayrton Senna, I feel are best told as a doc, because the characters themselves should tell the story. I don't want someone playing Amy Winehouse. I'm not sure an actor pretending to be her is as powerful as her singing or pretending to sing,
once,
right?
In a toilet in Camden back in the day, and she was a very unusual creature. So I think she can tell her own story.
Exactly. In other cases, there are kind of fiction films that are best way to tell a story. And in this case, it was like a hybrid of all three. It was like there was a lot of research. Burberry didn't give us a script. There wasn't, in this case, an agency who had written a script. Burberry had an idea that they wanted to tell their history. They had mood boards, they had visuals, because they are inherently creatives. They know their history, they know how to show something. But the idea was, which part of this huge story do we choose? Which storylines, which elements? Shackleton stood out. Betty's story as a pilot stood out. There were a few others that stood out. There was his story, his wife, how they met, his father. There were certain things we decided to choose. How do you visualize them? What are you trying to say? The invention of gabardine became important. And that was our job. So it's a kind of a hybrid of commercials, advertising, feature film, all of this coming together to make a short film. That's how I thought of it. I always thought of it as making a short film, which in this case is a trailer.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, how different is it when you work with the brands to when you kind of can set your own paths for the storytelling?
First time I've done it, in this case, it was a wonderful experience. We all really got it on. We really enjoyed it. It was it was really fun. And actually, we all have our own experiences coming off certain films where you don't really enjoy it, and you work really hard and you do your best. And then in this case, it was a really enjoyable experience. And actually, we all made something that we all felt as we were doing it. This is good. This is really good. This looks amazing. The actors are enjoying it. The crew think it's good. That somewhere in that scene, you got a great moment. That's going to be but you never know until you cut it. Okay, and that was like anything. You've got to put it together. And I thought our editors, a great company called Intermission, who've again never done a commercial before, never been in this space, but I've worked with them in the feature sphere. So the idea is using your own experience and saying to Burberry, I'm going to use an editor that's never cut a commercial. And they trusted us. And
but
I said, let us see what they do.
It's not a traditional commercial, and you don't want to have
but you still have to have people that
dialogue
trust you enough to say, but what have they cut? What have they never done? We should get someone who's won loads of awards cutting commercials. You go, well, but it's not going to be a traditional commercial. And so that idea of just feeling like you can kind of offer up a name, and it's not going to be an editor, it's going to be a company, and within that company 4 or 5 editors are all going to have a go at it. They just have a different way of working, but I've worked with them and they're brilliant, and they found a track. All of this stuff was just a slightly unusual way, but Burberry, they kept trusting us even when they had doubts. They'd mention something and then they'd go, you know what, we think your cut was better. So they during the edit, there were a few places they wanted changes, and we said, okay, fine, let's have a look at it. And then Christopher would go, it was better before. And we're like, yes, it was, thank God. But that's all part of the process of just saying, fine, I'm not going to put my foot down, let's have a look at it. And that whole kind of working together was what was really great about it.
And you mentioned that you've just come straight in, was it from Vienna, you said?
No, I just travelled up from Naples.
Naples, sorry.
Have you ever been to Naples?
Not for a long time.
Incredible city. So I'm just working there on the next movie. So I've been out
You allowed
there.
to tell us anything about your next movie?
I'm doing a film about Diego Maradona, very calm, quiet, peaceful kind of footballer who then went to play in Naples, which at the time was one of the kind of scariest places in the world, actually, because of the Camorra. And he took a team that never won anything to become one of the best teams in the world. So it's about his story. So it's in the vein of Senna and Amy, and it's like the third part of a trilogy, I feel.
And how are you formatting it then? Like,
it's another archive feature doc.
So you're not going to be using so much of the more modern chats with people who knew. It's more going to be
I mix it all up. So I interview people and I find archive, and it's always a bit of a mosaic. It's always a mixture of different things, but I quite like seeing these guys in their prime, and so a lot of it visually will be archive based.
Fabulous. And how long will you be in Rome for?
I'm flying back as soon as I finish this, actually. I'll check
really?
out and I'm out of
So
here. I've got to get back to work.
Oh. Yeah, no rest for the wicked. Well, thank you ever so much for chatting to us. Hopefully we'll get to see the 60s edition of another Burberry campaign soon.
Yeah.
And good luck on your future film.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Cheers.